I thought I'd be better, but that doesn't mean I can't do the best I can in this situation I'm put in. And when I'm in a better situation, I know I will do better. So, something I do want to talk about is this concept of if you don't know what to look for, you don't know what to fix. That saying can be said in so many different ways. Obviously, we're going to tie it into personal training, but for your own personal self development, I want you to really think about that. And fitness is one of the most important self development journeys that you can go on because it carries over into every aspect of your life. And without health, you don't have a lot of wealth. And it stops people to second guess the progress that they've stalled. Most gym owners or gym goers can't answer that question, not because they're lazy or unmotivated. Plenty of people work really hard, but they don't know how to solve the problem because they don't know what they're to look for. Maybe you're adding more weight. Maybe you're sweating more. Maybe you're doing more cardio. Maybe you have a lot of willpower, but you're wondering why the needle can't go. And you don't necessarily know what that problem is. And a good trainer is not going to throw punches in the dark. We watch you move, and we already have a decent idea of what's going on. We glance at your program, and we have an even better idea of what's going on. We ask you a couple questions about your sleep, what diet you're on, and we have a really good idea of where we're having a missing link. You can't fix a problem that you can't see. The average person can't view themselves from third person, let alone through the lens of a personal trainer, especially a really good seasoned personal trainer. So here's some things that trainers see that you don't. The first one is kind of what I would consider the eye test: movement patterns. Just watching how somebody moves gives me so much information that somebody who's a new trainer, or maybe just even a fitness enthusiast, but not really big into understanding body mechanics, they wouldn't necessarily know where to look. Really common when I'm training new trainers at the gym on what they should be looking for. I'm like, start by their feet. Look at their feet. Oftentimes, people's feet are crooked, the ankles are collapsing, and then on that way up, the knees start to wobble. Maybe they're shifting weight forward, shifting weight back. The body is brilliant, but also lazy. It's going to travel in the path of the least resistance, which means that it's going to do the pattern that they're most familiar with, because it takes a lot of work to have to do a new pattern. And it's not that muscles are asleep or necessarily, quote unquote, weak. Maybe they're just not firing properly, right? And then over time, you might start to create some level of imbalance. Your shoulder rolls forward, especially on one side, years of being at a desk. Your head's kind of tilted to the side, or one shoulder rises a little higher. Your pelvis is just slightly uneven, or anterior or posterior tilt. Your feet flatten out. And none of it is necessarily noticeable to the naked eye, but it builds up. And that's where trainers view it. Even trainers who say, oh, posture doesn't matter, they're going to still have a good idea of the eye test. And there are going to be some trainers, come at me in the comments, who are going to say, yeah, that stuff doesn't matter. That's just trainer gimmicky. Then why does it work half the time? To help make people feel the muscles that we want them to feel and alleviate stress and pain. It's a balancing act. It might not be the most important, but it is an aspect of it. Especially when we're seeing them do squats and deadlifts, you can kind of use your eyes to see, oh, yeah, that's your breaking point. Oh, yeah, you're rounding your spine. Oh, yeah, those knees, especially one, is collapsing in real hard, right? And if a trainer watches you do an overhead squat, you'd pick up stuff on me. An air squat, probably significantly less, but you probably would see a story of a torn ligament in my ankle and in my knee, and that my hip weren't fully even. And so, where do you compensate? Where do you feel it? What gets turned on? What's overworked, right? And that's an assessment. Before you go buy a posture correction brace or go to a mobility or posture guru, in all honesty, most of the time you can get most of that work done just by a simple assessment that's usually going to be free at the gyms with these types of trainers. Yes, they're going to try to sell you something. I try to sell you something. That's my assessment tool, but it works, right? If you have to hold something in place with a brace, you're not going to hold it yourself in space, and that's going to turn things off. So orthotics, braces, gadgets, it's not going to necessarily turn on the muscles that should be working and strengthening those weak links. And your form is fine until it isn't. So those trainers who tell you, yeah, posture doesn't matter necessarily, don't be such a form police, that's fair. And it's fine until it isn't, right? It's not, you want to make the movement look beautiful and flawless. Two people can do the same row, and one loads their lats and mid back, and the other yanks with their low back and biceps. There's a concept. I really like this concept. I could do a whole podcast episode on this. In Japan, there's a saying, and there's an art form. And it's not, it is archery, but it's not archery in the sense of trying to get the arrow into the bullseye as much as what we're looking for. How beautiful can you make your bow and arrow shot look, regardless of if the arrow hits its target? And you can think about that a lot in strength. Is the goal to lift as heavy weight possible, or to make the movement look flawless? Of course, some people get obsessed with flawlessness so much they don't add load. However, that's a great mindset to have. And a trainer does have that eye, at least a well-rounded trainer, where we're watching tempo, technique, range of motion, what muscles look like they're going to be working, and we're asking you for that feedback to give you better form. Again, your program isn't a program if it's a pile of workouts. What's funny is right now, I've been very intuitively training for a little while. I've been getting asked a lot at the gym, oh, like, what are you doing today? I don't know yet. I've just been a little spacey and been really enjoying my training. Now, I'm not following it blindly. I go through phases of, okay, I'm going to train like this for 3 or 4 weeks, and I'm going to do isometrics, and I'm going to do supersets, and I'm going to do high volume, and I'm going to focus on strength. I'm going to focus on my Zerchers. And because I go so often and regularly, I do have a good feel for my body. I've also been doing this for 18 years, but I'm not immune to that. I should have a program. Walking in and doing whatever feels good isn't a problem if you've been working out for 18 years and you know what you're doing and you write programs for other people. And maybe that's part of it. Because I'm writing programs for other people, I don't necessarily want to write it for myself, but I also don't want to spend the money because it is expensive, because I know what I charge for someone else to do it. Everybody will almost botch the progressive overload, and that's true. That's one thing haven't been doing as much. I actually remember pretty good for the most part what I've been doing, but it's still not 100% accurate. And it's a non-negotiable driver for adaptation. And your body changes only when you give a reason for it. And you've probably been curling the same dumbbells for the same reps for years. And your body has no incentive to really build that much more. Maybe a little bit. It's sets times reps times weight over time. And maybe that's giving you at least some stimuli. But progressive overload isn't always just adding more weight. You can add more reps, you can add more sets, you can slow your tempo down, you can do more volume in the week, you can improve your range of motion, you can have a better mind-to-muscle connection, you can have better tempo, you can shrink your rest periods, you can change somewhat the order of operations of the workout, and it has to be deliberate and tracked, so that way you don't miss anything. And it's the being deliberate and tracked part that I know I've missed out on a bit. I know what I did with my Zerchers. Let's go a little heavier. So I have been doing it with some movements, especially some movements I've really been focused on. And I have a good feel of what is a decent enough intensity. If you're not writing things down, I know you're missing out part of it, because I know that too. For me, it's slightly more on the mental side of things. Another mistake is just in plain sight, right? Ego reps. That's a big one. Half repping, right? Quarter repping. It feels impressive in the time, but full range of motion is what counts, and trainers will call you out on that. Maybe it's no recovery, and it's not recovery in the workout, it's in between workouts, because I always worry that I'm not doing enough or not getting to the gym enough, and I don't like to take days off from the gym. Now, if you're chasing soreness in the burn and you've never done that before, that can still be effective, but it doesn't mean it has to be a great workout. Especially some of the strength workouts, just focusing on strength, you don't need to be that sore, and you're definitely not going to get a burn. And there's a lot of basic, boring fundamental lifts that even I could circle back into barbell back squats, and I'm getting back into flat bench press again. I have always liked the incline, but those two for sure. Barbell, just regular bent over rows. I've always liked the explosive pendlay rows. And just random exercise hopping. Even though I'm not following a perfectly written out plan, I'm not actually exercise hopping too much. I do have a good base of what's in my head and roughly what I've done with them. But I'm definitely hopping where not every single workout is going to be the same for me right now. Do I do that with clients? Hardly ever. And I probably train people better than what I would train myself. Outside of the gym, progress is also where it's won or lost. And trainers don't want to just think about taking you through their workout. They also want to think about your diet, your sleep, your stress, all those other factors. Many people who claim that they eat really well, then when I ask them, what's their diet look like? Well, I eat good. Okay, what does that mean? A trainer, if you tell us what you're eating for a week, we have a really good idea of if that's good or not. You don't need to track macros, but it does count, let alone at least tracking protein. That's the easiest one. If you're telling me what you're eating for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, 9 times out of 10 when people tell me that they eat something, that they're on a healthy diet, they're not eating much protein for breakfast or lunch. I am going to pick on my mom here. I like to pick on my mom. She's better. For a while, breakfast could be cereal, and lunch could be crackers, cheese, and apple. Well, that's not that bad. Cereal, no. Peanut butter and toast, no. And the amount of protein you actually need to eat is significantly higher than what you would get with those meals. Yeah, sure, there's protein in cheese, but I know the amount she's eating. She's not eating blocks of cheese at a time. And that's actually not an uncommon lunch for a lot of people. And so just getting the more protein in better. A lot of people also will just cut too aggressively, too quickly, without even tracking to begin with. Other times people, if they tell me that they do tons and copious amounts of cardio, it's not evil. It's not a primary tool for fat loss. Calorie deficit is. What builds a calorie deficit? Over time, building lots of muscle, building strength. So again, a trainer's going to be able to see the problems that you have better than what you can see. You might be working out in the wrong way. You might be doing way too much cardio here. Your body adapts to the cardio, and that's okay. Still good for your heart health. Most people, they're looking for fat loss, and that's one of their problems. Yet, they're unwilling to accept the advice from a trainer that they should be focused more on strength training, counting macros, and adjusting the macros. The long-term play is building muscle through strength training. Muscle is metabolically active, raises your metabolism and your maintenance calories, so then you can cut even more. You just can't raise it when you're also in a cut at the same time. So tying back to diet, well, I'm going to go in a cut and I'm going to strength train. Okay, cool. That's still okay, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend that at first. Pick one and pick the strength training first. Build your metabolism, then cut. And that's another problem that we will be able to see that you might not be able to. Why? Because I've worked with hundreds of people so far. And 9 times out of 10, they don't listen to me at first. And then they listen and it's like, oh yeah, I'm down like 20 pounds. There we go. Right? Without us actually having to try anymore. Sleep. That's a big one. How well do you sleep? Oh, I'm good. I get like six and a half hours. No, that's shit. I'm sorry to say, six and a half hours of sleep, that's shit. You need to fix that. That's a big problem. Sleep is the best thing you can do for your health. Miss a week of workouts and tell me how you feel. Miss one night of sleep and tell me how you feel. Sleep is arguably the most important thing. Repairs muscles, regulates hormones, governs hunger, helps with your recovery, manages stress, prevents you from being overly crazy. And so we need to help you with your sleep. And we know where those problems are. You're probably on your phone too much. You're probably on screens too much. You're probably in a warmer room. Your partner probably keeps you up. You probably have too much light in your room. There's so many problems there with sleep that are easy fixes. Also, going to bed and waking up at the same time every day, massive help. All of this is going to factor into your stress and cortisol levels. So lots to go over here. But I like the concept of if you don't know what to look for, you don't know what to fix. And you don't necessarily need to look for all these. Nor do you need to do all of them right now, but a trainer is going to be able to give you a second, fresh set of eyes from the lens of an experienced trainer. If you're looking for a free consultation, I'm more than happy to take you through a half-hour call, followed by a half-hour to an hour assessment, and I'll even give a program to anybody who I like who in those two things. So anyway, and that's going to be available for the next 60 days after this session drops. Actually, until the end of summer, till September 1st. So I know, crazy, right? Until next time.